that anything I noticed.
Okay, we have a report that you're off.
Dharma, you know the verse in number 7? Dhamma, the number of the verse?
Yes, I actually didn't write it.
You didn't write the verse?
Sorry.
Okay.
Is it 7 now?
I forget.
It's 7 now, yes. It's 324/7.
It's fine.
24? 325.
So 25, chapter 25.
25.
Yoga tastes fine, too much honey in it.
Oh, you think
It's sweet.
You think it's fine?
Yeah, that's, the bite is from honey. The yogurt smells. That's how it is from honey. Too much honey.
Okay.
The bite of
Looks like 8. Verse number 8. Yeah. Verse number 8. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Okay. Gopi Jana Vallabha. Hold on. Giri Vara. Vara means best. Giri means hill. The best of hills is Govardhan.
Vara.
Yeah, Gopi Vara Dhari.
Dhari.
Yeah, Dhari.
Dhari.
Yeah. That Dhari means holder up. Just like Giri Dhari. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. And Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Bhadrakacharya Astotartha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Bhadrakacharya Astotartha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So before we begin, Bhakti Davis, can you open that door about a foot? And Damodar Kumar Prabhu, please open that door. Thank you. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudiriet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesh abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
On this second day of August 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the third canto, entitled Status Quo, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service. Text number 8. Can you look on? Okay. Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasya paragam satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvadanugrahat. Damodar, you got it? Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasya paragam satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvadanugrahat. Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasya paragam satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvadanugrahat. Go ahead. Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasya paragam satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvadanugrahat. Right.
Tasya tvam tamason. How do you say that last word?
Tasya tvam tamasondhasya.
Tasya tvam tamason
Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparas yadyaparagam satchakshur janmanam ante labdham me tvadanugrahat tasya tvam tamasondhasya dusparas yadyaparagam satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvadanugrahat tasya that tvam you tamasaha ignorance andhasya darkness dushparasya difficult to cross adya now paragam crossing over sat transcendental chakshuhu eye janmanam of births ante at the end labdham attained me my tvat anugrahat by your mercy. Translation, so this is Devahuti speaking to Kapila Dev. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which, by your mercy only, I have attained after many, many births. Purport. This verse is very instructive, since it indicates the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. The disciple or conditioned soul is put into this darkest region of ignorance, and therefore is entangled in the material existence of sense gratification. It is very difficult to get out of this entanglement and attain freedom, but if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a spiritual master like Kapila Muni or his representative, then by his grace one can be delivered from the mire of ignorance. The spiritual master is therefore worshipped as one who delivers the disciple from the mire of ignorance with the light of the torch of knowledge. The word paragam is very significant. Paragam refers to one who can take the disciple to the other side. This side is conditioned life. The other side is the life of freedom. The spiritual master takes the disciple to the other side by opening his eyes with knowledge. We are suffering simply because of ignorance. By the instruction of the spiritual master, the darkness of ignorance is removed, and thus the disciple is enabled to go to the side of freedom. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, if after many, many births, one is able to find a bona fide spiritual master and surrender to such a bona fide representative of Krishna, one can be taken to the side of light. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmiritam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So there could hardly be more of an appropriate verse to quote than the one that we chant before every class. Om Jnana Timirandasya. The very word andha is used in this verse also. This andha really means blindness, to be blinded by ignorance. When we do anything in this world, we do it on the basis of some kind of knowledge, even if it's very rudimentary knowledge, even if the knowledge is wrong. The way that we do things is because we have some idea of what the result is going to be, what the experience is going to be. So knowledge is central to anything we do. And that's why the intelligence, is always some kind of intelligence, even in the lower animals. They have to have an intelligence in order to interpret their environment, to understand this is an enemy, this is a friend, this is something to eat, this is something to avoid. So there's a rudimentary intelligence in every species. But in the human life, we have the higher intelligence. This is the great gift of this human form of life, by which we can understand this philosophy, so that instead of just acting on impulse or the dictation of the senses or the mind, we can act for our ultimate benefit. Every morning I chant these 4 verses as I'm walking up and down those stairs, You see me walking up and down the stairs, but each repetition is a meditation on a certain verse, has to do with the number. The number. So when I get to 3, I chant these verses from the end of the 16th chapter. And this is the chapter on the demons, of course. So Krishna has just described the hellish punishment that demons get, who are simply controlled by their lower nature. Their Ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. This is the famous mantra of the demons. I am the master. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. This may seem like a very familiar mentality. This is the mentality of our government now, and many people. So Krishna says they suffer more and more sinful reactions, and in this way they experience a hellish existence. So at the beginning of these 4 verses, which end the chapter, he says, Tribadham nadakasyedham dwaram nashanam atmana kama krodhas tata lobhas tasmarita trayam chajet. So he's saying that there are 3 gates that lead to this hell that I've just described, the hellish punishment. And they are lust, anger, and greed. The wise person gives these up. And then he gives the alternative. Etava mukta kontaya tamo dvarais tabiyanaha achadat yatmanakshayas tato yati parangatim. He says those who have escaped these 3 gates, in other words, who are not acting under the impulse of lust, anger, and greed, then they act for their own ultimate benefit. Achadat yatmanak shreya. This word shreya is central to our whole philosophy. The difference between shreyas and preyas. The difference between auspicious activity, that which leads to ultimate good, and immediate pleasurable activity that leads down into hellish suffering. That's the difference between shreyas and preyas. So here it says, for what? For the soul. Acharati means to act. That's why we have the word acharya. It means one who teaches not only by his words but by his example. You know, you can't teach bhakti if you're not practicing. So the acharya perfectly practices and very powerfully teaches because of that. So this acharati simply means to act. So he acts for his ultimate shreyas, and toto yati parangatim, and ultimately goes to the supreme goal, back to Godhead. So this is the alternative we have. So then in the next verse, he goes back, and he describes one who ignores. Now he brings in the idea of Shastra. Shastra is the knowledge. What are we reading here? You know, it's actually the recorded knowledge of great saints and sages and spiritual masters. So there's no difference between the genuine spiritual master and the Shastra. The teachings are the same. In fact, the word acharya is defined, I forget in what Purana, as one who knows the Shastra in and out, inside and out, very, very, well-versed. And he acts according to it, and he takes the trouble to preach. Those 3 things make the acharya. But that acting according to Shastra is essential, so that you have that, that's why the word is acharya. So here he's saying that one who's escaped these gates, in other words, he's not under the control of lust, anger, and greed, he acts for his own good, for the good of the soul, and ultimately goes back to God. On the other hand, yakshasta vartate kamakarata nasasiddhim avapnoti nasukam naparam gatim. He says, if one doesn't act, if one discards the injunctions of Shastra and simply acts according to his whims, kamakarata, according to his own desires, then nasasiddhim, he doesn't attain perfection, doesn't attain happiness, and certainly doesn't attain the supreme goal. So the final verse of the chapter is a key verse in the whole Bhagavad Gita. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya vibhastito yatra shastra padanuktam karma kartam ahardasi. Therefore, one should accept as one's pramana, one's guide into how to act and one's understanding, the Shastra. And we have the cream, the creme of all the Shastra, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and their corollaries. Other books we have are based on them. So, Tasmat Shastra Pramanam Te Karya Vibhastito. As your guide in what to do and what not to do. This is what your whole life is made up of. You're doing one thing, and by doing that one thing, you're not doing 100 billion other things. Right? So you're doing one thing and not doing another. So Shastra describes what to avoid and what to do. What to accept and what to reject. So And then he said one should consult the Shastra as one's immediate ultimate. And then he hammers home the point and says, and having consulted and understood, one should actually act such a way as a matter of duty. Now, why is it a matter of duty? Because the feelings are not going to be there at first. This is a very nice thing that Prabhu described. What is the function of the mind? Thinking, feeling, and willing. Thinking, feeling, and willing. Your inner being. So, now it begins with thinking. In other words, knowledge is there. If you have no exposure, you have no access to Krishna conscious philosophy, you're just acting on the basis of sensation or material knowledge, then you have no hope. Then you're blind, and your feeling and your willing are going to be dictated by the modes of nature. So the thinking is key, and that's purified by the intelligence, by hearing from the Shastra and from the realized sages who are simply giving you the Shastra in a way that you can understand and exemplifying it, making it credible. So in the last line of the whole chapter, he says, having understood what the Shastra says to do and not to do, one should actually do that as a matter of duty. Because your feelings are going to be going another way. There's not going to be complete correspondence with your thinking, feeling, and willing. You're going to think, okay, I understand it's absolutely essential to give up these 4 pillars of sin. But at one point you're going to feel like smoking a joint, you're going to feel like having some illicit sex, But you say, no, it's a matter of duty, I can't do that. So that's how the higher intelligence works. And after a certain amount of time of that, and then it's not even a question. You become habituated to following the Shastra. So, now, back to our verse today. It's the same idea. Where are we going to get the vision to see our way out of this? There's so many verses describing in the Bhagavad Gita and others of how this is really opening our eyes, giving you the vision. I remember there's a beautiful verse about the holy name. How the holy name is described. The beginning of the Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami. He wrote 8 verses on the holy name. I think these were collected by Jiva Goswami as a Namashtaka, because there's no 9th verse. 9th verse is usually called the Palashruti. So but anyway. So he said, Nikila Shruti Mauri Ratnamala Duti Nirajata Pada Punkajanta. I Muktakalaita Pasimanam Paditastramari Nama Sankriyami. So he's saying that the crown jewels of all the Vedas, which are the Upanishads, which contain the essence of the spiritual knowledge of the Vedas, the effulgence emanating from those jewels of those Upanishads is worshipping in arati the tips of the toes of the lotus feet of the holy name. Now there you've got a lot of stuff going on. First of all, the holy name is not different from Krishna. So it's like a person. He has feet and toenails. And so that means that the knowledge of the Upanishads is worshipping the holy name, meaning that all the knowledge is coming. You remember Shikshastika, first verse, Vidyavadu Jivanam, that the chanting of the holy name is the life and soul of transcendental knowledge. Now how does that work? Well, the first thing is that all this knowledge is within us. We just forgot. That's part of our philosophy. It's all buried in there. Right? We just have to be reminded of our sarup, who we are, that we're actually souls, we're servants of Krishna, and act in that way. If we actually understand who we are and we act on that basis as servants of Krishna, then the realization comes, the powerful cleansing of the heart comes. So the most important aspect of that activity is chanting the holy name. And that cleanses the heart, and knowledge starts coming out. But more importantly, or conjointly, you become receptive to receiving the knowledge from outside, from the 2 main sources, the Guru and the Sadhu, 3 sources, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So that's how the Acharya, in this case Kapila Deva, who's God himself, acts. He not only imparts the knowledge, but he helps us to become receptive to it. Now in the case of Devahuti, she's already the perfect disciple. She's a realized soul already, so she's taking the role of a disciple, and she's describing her situation, which really, she's giving us an example. I'm bothered so much by my senses right? Her whole point here is that I'm sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses. Why? Because the senses are always pulling us to try to enjoy them, right? That's the whole idea of sense gratification. So that's tarshanat. Tarshana means thirst. You know, the idea is that the senses are on fire, they're trying to enjoy the sense objects. And the soul realizes, oh, this is a big disturbance. This is taking me way off the path that I need to go, which is self-control, sense control, and directing my attention toward Krishna and using the senses for Krishna. But the senses in the conditioned state are demanding gratification. And when we yield to them, then the knowledge becomes covered. You know, the whole idea of self-realization, God-realization, Krishna consciousness becomes a phantasmagoria. Rather than the material world being a phantasmagoria, which we know it is, right? It's just a it's a big video game, you know, trying to draw you in, to take your attention away from what's real. But it's a powerful, you know, display, the most powerful, because it's got Krishna behind it. So this is our problem. And she says nirvana. This is a very important word, as was brought out by Prabhupada. This word nirvana means disgusted. I've had enough already. In other words, she's taking the role of a conditioned soul who's seen the light, and that, you know, I can't keep acting this way. You know, I need guidance, I need help in order to come out. I need an intervention. It's just like a drug addict or a drunk who comes to his senses, you know, between bouts of drunkenness. Says, I need help. You know, and he doesn't just say I need help, but he actually does something about it. He goes to AA or something like that. You know, and really the AA program is very similar. You need association. You have to recognize that higher power, right? And it works for many of them because the same principle is there. But it only brings them to the point of sobriety so that they can try to enjoy the senses. It really doesn't get them out of the material world, but it can get them out of the hell of, you know, being a drunk, alcoholic. So nirvana, you know, just as the drunk becomes disgusted, the drug addict becomes disgusted, the person whose weight weighs 350 pounds becomes disgusted, and it's all due to the same thing, the out of control senses. The intelligence is giving a little signal, right? And what have I become? You know, I'm ruining my life. I need help. It's exactly the same thing. So the conditioned soul who's aware, I need help to make a complete solution to the problem of being controlled and by the material senses and the material energy and suffering, comes to this point of approaching the spiritual master. Now, in the modern age, because of all the media, now you see all of these are just conversations. There's no books around, there's no videos, there's no cell phones, there's nothing. It's simply one conversation after another. The medium is the direct communication, which is the most powerful. But that's not even possible today. If you're going to have a mass movement with millions and millions and even billions of people getting the knowledge, you need a media, or a set of media. And that's why, you know, in Prabhupada's day, in Bhakti, it was the presence of books. And Prabhupada talks about radio. In the early books, there's no television. He talks about radio. You know, radio sounds. So that how he gives it as an example, and also as a big source of pollution. And he talks about cinema. You know, this is media that can completely absorb you and take you away from Krishna. But at the same time, it can also bring Krishna to you. So the mass distribution of books. Now, books are a certain kind of media. There are media. I cited Marshall McLuhan in one previous class. Were you there, Brian? Do you remember? You remember that name, Marshall McLuhan? Okay, this is before your time. He was really big in the 60s. And his famous phrase was, the medium is the message. And in one sense, you know, and what came out of that is that the different kind of media, I forget exactly you know, the hot media and the cold media. And I think it's the cold media that requires more participation from the one who's receiving the knowledge. The books are like that. Books it's just the words on the page. Now behind those words, you know, can be the personality of Godhead. But you have to make the effort to read and understand, you know, and in our case, recite and hear and all these things. You have to bring it to life. Whereas the hot medium means you just It may be the other way around, but anyway, the idea is that you just sit back and watch and it flows over you, you know. And it can be very powerful because it takes over your mind. Here you're participating. You're directly engaging your intelligence all the time, interpreting and understanding, maybe discussing, you know, writing notes and things. So that's why these books are so essential. And here, you know, if you really get into it, we're there. We're right there with Devahuti and Kapiladev. We're on the strand, the shore of the Bindu Sarovara. You know, at one point, Prabhupada says, after Narada Muni in the first canto, he comes and he teaches Vyasadeva, instructs him on the writing of Bhagavatam. And then Narada Muni is about to go off, you know, with the Veena. He's a transcendental spaceman. And Prabhupada says at the end of one purport, we really thank Narada Muni who has so kindly appeared in these pages of Bhagavatam. In other words, you can be there. This is the reality. The reality is coming through the books. Now, sometimes it's fantastic. It seems to go against what we think we know about the way the world works. But we know philosophically, this is reality, and all of this is really just a big illusion. You know, our whole involvement in our idea to enjoy this world. So, you know, why is she disgusted? Asad Indriya Tarshana, because of my addiction, my thirst, Tarsha's thirst of the senses for the asat. Asat means the temporary sense gratification. You can never be happy, you can never be satisfied because it's coming and going. It's just a fleeting thing, no matter what kind of pleasure it is. Sex, drugs, just, you know, opera. It comes and it goes. It may be refined mode of goodness, you know, but it's still asat. So, by which I have fallen into this abyss of ignorance. This is an accurate assessment of the conditioned soul. Now, what comes to mind is this one beautiful verse in the Mukunda Mala. I have to share this with you. Mukunda Mala is really, there's a lot of really good verses in there. So this one is near the beginning, and he's saying these same words. He's using the same words. Andasya me rita viveka mahadanasya chaurai prabho balabid indriya nama dehai mohanda kupaka hare vinipata tasya devesha dehi kupanasya karavalambam. Now this could practically be another verse here by Devahuti. It's the same idea. So he's saying that, my dear Lord, that my powerful senses are just like thieves, and they've blinded me and stolen my great treasure, my discrimination, and thrown me into the deep dark well of ignorance. Andasyame means blinded. Andasyame rita viveka. They've taken away my viveka. Viveka is in discrimination, what's right and what's wrong. Mahadanasya, which is my great treasure as human beings, that's all we have, different from the animals. Otherwise, we use our big intelligence just to be big animals. But the real, you know, discrimination is what is right, what is wrong, what is the best thing, what is Shreya, what is, you know, Ashreya. So, they've stolen away. My senses are so powerful, they're just covering everything. And they've thrown me down, mohanda kupa kuhare, into a deep well of, blind well of illusion. Moha andakupa. Blind well means there's no water in there. It's just overgrown with grass. So no one can get you out. You know? In other words, it's a well it's in some remote area. You may yell and yell, but if no one is there, you know, you're dead. So it's moha andakupa kuhare vinipata tasya. Here's this word pata, just like patita pavana. You know, they've thrown me. So this is, in 3 lines, painted a very graphic picture. Devesha dehi kupanasya karavalambam. O Lord of the Devas, Krishna, Devesha dehi kupanasya, please give to this wretched soul your hand, your merciful hand, and pull me out of this well. So how does Krishna do that? Because it's all coming from Krishna. It's rare that he uses his hand to pull out, but he does once. Balaram, when did Krishna use his hand to pull someone out of a well? Nriga. Yes, Nriga. There's a whole other story of Nriga. But he still reaches into this well, big well of the material energy. He does it occasionally by becoming himself. And he always leaves something behind, such as the Bhagavad Gita. Or he comes as Vyasadeva is also an incarnation, literary incarnation, writing. All of the Vedas are culminating in Bhagavatam. So this is Krishna reaching out to us through the words of the Bhagavatam, through the words of the great devotees, through him coming himself as Lord Chaitanya and spreading the holy name. All of that is Krishna's reaching into this well, but we have to be willing to hold on to that hand, and we have to, or the rope, however you want to call it, so that he can pull us out. And that holding on to his hand or holding on to the rope is our practice of sadhana bhakti. Accepting, understanding, purifying the intelligence, then acting according to the Shastra, which means sadhana bhakti. And that is the means by which we can be delivered. So in the present verse, she uses this word anda again, darkness. It's difficult to cross. You are my eye. In other words, you are the one who can open my eye and give me the vision by which I can cross over this world. Labdame tvadanugrahat, out of your mercy. It simply causes mercy that Krishna does this. Now there's another verse I wanted to share with you about the holy name, because that's perhaps our most familiar, whatever realizing we have comes from chanting, really, of the power of the holy name. We all know that if we don't chant, before we chanted, we're in complete ignorance. And then now we're chanting and trying to chant our rounds, and come to the point of purity, clearing, whatever. But whatever chanting we're doing, that's what's keeping us here. That's what's keeping us interested in Hare Krishna. That's what's giving us the faith that, yes, Krishna is God, I'm his eternal servant, and this is the material world is created by him, and faith in the philosophy. Believe me, if you didn't chant at all for a few days, your faith would be highly damaged, and your senses would be pulling you like crazy. So that we have to protect that chanting by trying to chant offenselessly, not offending devotees. There's no better way to destroy your taste for chanting than offending devotees. Believe me, I've seen it. And that's the most dangerous thing. If you offend the devotees, stop chanting, leave the association, you're at you're going to be overwhelmed by Maya. So, the holy name now comes, another analogy that Rupa Goswami gives in this Namashtaka is the holy name as the sun of the holy name. Yada bhaso pyudyan kabalita bhavadvanta vibhavo drasham tatvandhanam abhidishati bhakti pranahinim janastasya datam jagati bhagavan namatadane kuti tene bhaktim yahi mahimanam prabhavati. So here you may have heard that word abhas. You heard that phrase nama bhas. Means not pure chanting, but you're clearing off a lot of the anarthas, and you're beginning to get some sense of the purity, benefits of the chanting. So that's called namabhas stage. It's an advanced stage, nearly offenseless, but not pure. So he says even an abhas means a reflection. Even yara baso pirdyan, a reflection of the sun of the holy name, and it's just like in dawn. We get up so early here. If you walk around at the right time, you'll see the sun coming up, or you'll see the light, increasing in the sky. That's like compared to this. The sun is coming up. The sun of the holy name is just rising, and even before it fully rises, it completely swallows up the prowess of Maya. Yara baso bin kabalita bhava. Kabalita means to swallow up. Bhava dvanta vibhavo. Swallows up the darkness that's caused by the illusion. This analogy is used by Haridas Thakur, quoting a verse too, that just as the sun coming up, it dissipates the darkness in the sky even before it rises over the horizon. Similarly, the holy name rising in the heart gives liberation, as one of the first benefits. So, and then what is the holy name? When the sun rises, it shows the path out of the material energy, which is like, visualize a jungle, a deep jungle. You're in the depths of a jungle. You don't know how to get out. You don't know how you got in there, but you're there. And I can't get out. It's dark. It's nighttime. You're trapped. You can't see. So when the sun rises, you can say, oh, there's this little path out I can go. So this is what the second analogy. When the sun rises a little more, it shows the path to those who are blinded. Again, the word blinded of the way out of this material world. So then he says, well, what learned devotee could possibly fully describe your mercy and your qualities? He's glorifying the holy name in this way. So all of these work together. Krishna reaches out through the spiritual master, through the Shastra, sometimes he comes himself, and through his holy name, through the deities, all these ways in which he makes himself accessible. And the more we take advantage of them fully, the more we'll feel ourselves not covered so much by the material energy, not disturbed. Not disturbed. The mind would be not so much disturbed by the material energy because you'd be more Krishna conscious. So, Prabhupada said this is very instructive. This is how we should actually feel toward the spiritual master, is that, it's just out of Krishna's mercy that he sent the spiritual master, and the spiritual master, out of his mercy, is taking the trouble to try to break through the thick fog of illusion and give us the knowledge which can save us. The whole thing is a mercy mission, to try to help the conditioned soul. Spiritual master, like Srila Prabhu, could have just sat in Vrindavan and gone back to Gaya, But he had the mission given by his spiritual master. The whole history is that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was sitting in Mayapur. I don't know if you know that, he had vowed to chant 1 billion names. You hear that? It took him about 9 years. And, of chanting about 300,000 names. Huh? Sometimes, the roof was leaky, he just held an umbrella, practically eating nothing. He was living extremely austerely. But after that vow had been completed, he felt the necessity of going back to Calcutta, of going to Calcutta, even though his spiritual master said, I'll never go to that kingdom of Maya. Gopi Shore was Bhajananandi, basically. But he inspired Bhaktisiddhanta, and so he went to Calcutta and started the whole mission to go to Yamat. So he was inspired by the mercy of compassion of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He took the trouble to preach, wandering all over India like that and giving the holy name. But then when the time came, he spent years and years in Puri, just relishing the highest and showing by his example. So, but the two tracks of Lord Chaitanya's life should also be ours. He has the internal and the external reason for coming. Krishna as Lord Chaitanya. Internally, he wants to relish, there's a verse which quotes Krishna speaking, why he's coming as Lord Chaitanya. Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrishovanaya Svadyo Yena Buddha Madhurima Kidrishovamadiya Saukyam Chasyam Monano Babata Kidrisham Veti Lobhatan Bhavaja Samajanicha Chiga Basindo Haridu. So he's saying there that, quoting Krishna, he says, Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima, I really want to understand the glory of Srimati Radharani's love for me. I can't understand that here in Goloka, because I'm as Krishna. I have to take her role. And I want to understand what she sees in me, what she alone relishes through that perfect lens of her love. Radharani appreciates Krishna's all attractive qualities more than anyone else, because she loves him more than anyone else. So he wanted to appreciate his own beauty and qualities and everything else from her point of view, love. So that's another desire. The first one is to understand the glory of her love itself. The other is to understand himself through her. And the other was to experience her bliss that she was feeling by loving him and being loved by him. None of those he could experience as Krishna, so therefore he came as Lord Chaitanya. So that's all very internal. But he also had this other track, Anarpita Chadim Chadat Karunaya Bhatina Kalo. In order to, it had not been given so many, for so many years, many thousands of years, the perfect love of Radha and Krishna. So Lord Krishna came to teach that. In other words, he's teaching us. This is out of his mercy. So that's preaching. So he has these two roles. The external motivation is to spread the holy name and to spread Krishna consciousness. And the internal motivation is to relish it. And both of those are concomitant, really. The more you relish it, and understanding Lord Chaitanya's mission and Prabhupada's mood and mission and his example, you have to preach it, you have to share it. Someone who's actually experiencing the benefits of Krishna consciousness, he has to give it out. And you find that when you give it, then you experience even more. Because after all, it's just a question of trying to please Krishna. That's where the bliss comes, right? And he's definitely very pleased when you share in Krishna consciousness. Amongst each other, amongst ourselves we should share, and the outsiders, so that they can become insiders.